Why Reno?
That's where I'm from. Well, no, take it back. That's where the story was written for, and I went to high school and college there. So it was, and it's funny. You talk to people from Reno, they're like, well, why isn't Reno talked about in it, and why isn't? And I'm like, well, it's right there, and we wanted it to be a character in the movie, and we really felt sort of that 24-hour-a-day drinking and the climate. It's its own sort of entity, and hopefully that comes through. And to do it on a soundstage in LA, which is what our line producer wanted, it was like, would not have worked at all. So, are you raising your hand?
That's me. I will ask a question. Okay, so when you were waiting to land, Patrick J. Adams, right? And you got him how many days before?
Like 3.
Was there another actor there whose heart was just crushed and soul was broken that was getting ready to step into the role?
Well, yeah, okay. A silly movie anecdote, and
I live for
not
this.
to yammer on, but so you all seen the TV show Lost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or in theory, you've heard of it. So one night, my wife and I were watching Lost, and Patrick had like a very small role on one episode, and I looked at my wife and I said, "That's the guy I want. Done." Like, not like that, but I'm like, I like that guy. So we brought him in. He read, loved him, but he couldn't come back. And it was like, long story short, there was a camp that was like, "No, we don't. He's not proven." And I was like, "That's the guy." And so in my mind, there was nobody else. Like, you pick your battles in filmmaking because there's so many elements. There's so many things that so many people with different opinions and ideas, and there's the realities of what you can and cannot do. But I was always Patrick, and I knew in my heart, like, if he wanted to do it, he was going to do it, and that was the one battle I dug my heels in, and we got it. So I had nobody else in mind at that point. The director preferred somebody else who was a little bit darker in terms of sort of his presence, but I thought this character does a lot of things that are questionable, and I wanted somebody who, despite his behavior, you liked, and you know he's just going through a rough phase or he's just being a jerk or whatever. Like, I wanted somebody you could relate to, and so yeah, no, I was like, Patrick was going to get the role. Pardon?
Especially if it was you.
Yeah, exactly. I have special interest in this. Please don't forsake that.
Did you have an underlying metaphor that you were thinking of as you kind of created the movie?
I really didn't. I mean, creating this movie or writing it was such a it was an experiment, and experimenting through failure. And sort of trying different things and seeing what worked. It was the first movie I ever wrote, and the first draft was terrible. I mean, it was just like so thin. And then I started really thinking about a lot of the issues that I was going through with my friends and family, and like my relationship with Ashley in the movie, which was, you know, my first love and very devastating to me that it didn't work out. And I started to really just keep drawing and trying to be true and keeping things messy and making sure that these characters were behaving in a way that I would hope real people would behave, you know, in terms of not just fitting what, you know, a movie would want them to do. And once I kind of latched onto that and just started like pouring in like real things, real emotion, and not just, hey, wouldn't it be funny if somebody drank and fell down, you know? That set the tone for me. You know, and thematically, you know, again, you know, in Reno there's that lure of going out and drinking, and that's sort of like a lifestyle, and you kind of forget the dangers of it. And the guy who plays Cracker in it was based on a lot of that stuff was based on a real friend of mine who is no longer with us. I mean, he OD'd in San Francisco under mysterious, or actually in Reno, after living in San Francisco. It's a horrible story, and I never wanted to make light of that. And so once I brought that aspect into it, I just wanted to be genuine to that person and sort of those choices and those, you know, what can happen to people, and if that lifestyle takes over.
Is that by the Hemingway book? Show it so powerful?
Well, I mean, that's a little bit more, I mean, that's just because I was reading a lot of Hemingway at that time in my life, and I was taking a lot of English classes, but I mean, that fed sort of like my personality at the time, you know, Hemingway, The Sun Also Rises, being, you know, this beautiful book about conflict, and you're not being able to achieve what you want to because of, so.
You mentioned the character Miller has a lot of dimensions to him, and he's basically a likable guy. But as the film progresses, he starts getting more and more sucked into all these scenarios where he's really spiraling downhill. You know, doing that thing in front of the whole bar. I think everybody started to realize he was starting to act like a jerk. And then, you know, it seemed like he was getting into a self-reflective thing there when, you know, with the old girlfriend, and then we went to visit the cracker in the thing. So I'm wondering, you as the writer, I guess I'm asking you this question. I was thinking at the end, what's the obligatory moment? You know, does he think after seeing his friend in rehab that he said, well, maybe I'll take a pause out, I'm going away to Madrid, but count me out for this one? Or I guess my question to you was that a feel-good commercial concession to have him actually take a drink, or would it have been showing some depth and growth and all that if he would have said, I think I'm going to pass in this round?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I think I deliberately wanted him to have a drink at the end of it because I didn't want it to be so, like, on the nose, like, oh, he's better now, everyone go home and be happy. That's not how real life works. I mean, things happen gradually. I mean, certainly people have, like, their wake-up moments, and then that's crystal clear, but for him, this is all about growth and, like, you know, taking these steps towards being the person you want to versus the person you are, and you know, I can tell you for a fact he goes to Spain and he drinks harder there than more of this adventure.
We can expect a sequel.
I wouldn't say that, but so you know, I thought if there was no way I was going to have it end on such a clean-cut note that people would say, oh, everything's better at great, you know, so yeah, like I said, I like things messy. I like characters that act like real people do, because real people don't just flip a switch and be like, everything's better now, great.